Food. We're always thinking about food. We write books about food. We have shows about food. We even know people for food. But there's something else that I feel like we haven't quite been told about well enough. And that is about junk food. You see, we all know that junk food is unhealthy and is one of the major causes of obesity, but what if it wasn't? What if junk food is only a small part in the story? And I want to prove it. You see, I feel like gaining weight and obesity go beyond just junk food. I mean, it has to be, because although everything about gaining weight leads back to junk food as the main point, I believe the deeper story is buried deep inside our daily lives in how we consume food and view it. And this isn't just a video about why junk food isn't the sole cause of obesity, it's also a journey of self-discovery. Because for the longest time, especially when I started living by myself and became responsible for what and when I eat, I don't really think I'm doing the best job. And I don't feel like I've been looking at my dietary health that well. And I believe I'm not the only one. You see, for me, I only eat whenever I feel like it. And that might not sound like a bad thing, but let me explain. You see, in a day, I tend to have 2 to 3 classes, each 2 to 3 hours long. And although there's always time in between those classes to go have lunch or something, most of the times, and by most of the times, I mean 95% of the times, I just tend to eat whatever the person in front of me is going to order, or if I was with a friend, I just tend to eat whatever they're having. Because I'm always so indecisive about food, and I don't think I'm the only one. But why am I telling you all of this? It's because I don't really think I have the healthiest diet. Like, I'll eat a fruit, like, occasionally, that being a month probably, and I want to know how unhealthy eating affects a person and whether I can do anything about it. And for starters, before we look at unhealthy eating, let's understand how food in general is helpful to us and the importance of different kinds of food. Alright, I wanted to explain this visually, and as we do that, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to guess what each kind of food placed right here is. Alright, time's up, and I'd like to begin with this one. If you guessed carbohydrate, you're right, and you get a point. But now, can you tell me what function it has in the body? Well, carbs are mainly a big source of energy for the body and mostly contain 4 calories per gram, with the most common source of carbs being foods like bread, rice, and sugar. But what about this one? If you guessed protein, you're right, and these ones have the most roles in the body, as they're involved in the growth and repair of body tissues, increasing muscle mass, and also helping the general bodily coordination, making them really important in the body. And they're also found in sources like milk, meat, and eggs, having a calorie count of 4 calories per gram, just like we said for the carbs. The last category are vitamins, which are 13 in number, coming from a variety of sources, the mostly common ones being fruits and vegetables. They are also really important in the body as they're involved in boosting immunity, strengthening the bones, and also improving the vision. The non-food sources of vitamins being the sun. But you probably knew all of this, so let's talk about calories. And while we do that, I'm gonna be explaining what makes someone to gain weight. So every type of food that someone consumes at a point has a specific number of calories stored inside it. And from all the calories that someone intakes at a point, the body can only use so much, and more than often, not all the calories get used up. And these excess calories are stored inside the body in the form of fat. But how does this actually happen? See, let's look at it this way. We have energy taken in and energy used up, and this energy we're talking about is gotten from calories. So when your body intakes any type of food, it acquires an amount of calories from it, and from these calories, after breaking it down, it gets energy. But how does this energy get used up? Well, the body uses this energy to do many of the activities that we perform in our daily lives. But depending on how many calories you took in, not all the energy get used up. So the body, in a way to save this energy for later, it stores it in the form of fat in fat cells, known Note that fat cells are always existent in the body. They only tend to increase or reduce in size depending on the amount of fat stored inside them. You see, when I come to think about it, I think the main cause of my unhealthy eating situation is because I've never had to make this type of decision ever in my life. And so have you, because when you're living with your parents, they're the ones who tend to make these type of decisions. And the same thing continued for me even throughout high school, where I never had a hint of a say on what I eat. But now when I'm left to do it for myself, I don't know how to. And I know this might sound really stupid to some people, but it's not stupid till you realize that a lot of people are undergoing the same thing. I know what you're thinking. Lenny, you can't possibly be saying what I think you're saying. And let me explain. Something that not a lot of people tend to talk about when they mention food is eating disorders. So, what are they? According to the National Institute of Mental Health, eating disorders are illnesses associated with severe disturbances in people's eating behaviors and related thoughts and emotions. That probably made no sense to you, so let me explain. Again, for this one, I'll be using a visual aid. This is Guy, and Guy needs food. But there's a problem. Guy's a little bit confused about what food, how much, or even when to eat, which leads to one of these four situations. Number 1. Guy might end up eating too little food or no food at all, or in another situation where a guy does eat his food but ends up purging it out after. The major reason for this being that Guy is afraid of gaining weight and he is constantly checking his weight. Here, we'd say that Guy has anorexia. Number 2. Guy might end up eating too much food. So much food that after eating it, he ends up vomiting all of it out after. Or in overextended fasting. This is where we'd say that Guy has bulimia. Number 3. Another way that Guy might responding is in binge eating. But unlike in bulimia, Guy doesn't vomit the food out after. He also tends to overeat even when he's already full. Here, we'd say that Guy has binge eating disorder. Number 4. Another way is that Guy might tend to be restrictive or very picky of whatever he eats. But unlike anorexia, Guy isn't doing this in fear of gaining weight. He just tends to be extremely picky of the foods that he eats. This is a disorder known as ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. Listen, before you misquote me, I'm not saying that I'm a health expert in this space, and if you happen to know someone who's struggling with anything that I said above, please seek professional help. Now, I want us to talk about obesity and this concept of being overweight, and while we're at it, I wanted us to look at healthy eating. In this day and age, I don't think you can talk about gaining weight without mentioning food, and to be more specific, junk food, because it's never been easier to access these foods, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a drive-thru, or even just your kitchen. These foods have never been more accessible. I mean, just think about this. You're watching a movie or just relaxing on the couch, on your phone, definitely. It's literally so easy to down a bag of popcorn or anything else. But remember, carbs are a big source of energy, and these foods have intense amount of fat and carbs, which in total make up a lot of energy. But we're not using this energy just sitting on the couch. That's not how this works. So the body just saves up this energy for later when we're going to need it. But we're not touching grass anytime soon. So the fat builds up in the body, and before you know it, you're fat. And not only that, you're still ingesting a lot of sugars, which could also lead to problems. And this leads to health problems related to being overweight. But wait, all of this is true, but junk food wasn't the problem, was it? I mean, just look back at everything we just said. All of that happened after you took junk food. So, who's the real victim here? Keep in mind that it's not just junk food which is involved in gaining weight. There are so many other factors involved in this. Like for example, not getting enough sleep could cause you to gain weight. Lack of exercise could cause you to gain weight. You might have genes that cause you to gain weight. So as you still point fingers at junk food being the cause of obesity and gaining weight, we still need to point fingers at ourselves and look and see if it's something in our daily lifestyle that is responsible for this. But how do we lose this extra weight? There are a lot of videos online on this topic itself, but I wanted to try and see if I can find the ones which do work. But the problem was, I'm not trying to lose any weight as I'm currently 54 kilos or 119 pounds. But I knew someone who'd done something similar to this, so I asked them a few questions and this is what I got. For someone who hasn't watched the video yet, can you tell us a little bit about what you did?
So in the past, about a year, a little under a year, I lost. I mean, this is just when I started tracking calories, though. I lost 30 3 pounds. But then before that, I also ran, and before I started tracking calories, which was a really big part of that. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But um, just like from me running on the treadmill for months and months leading up to tracking calories, I had already lost like a significant amount of weight, probably like 50 other pounds. So probably close to 80
Yeah.
pounds overall.
Interesting, but how did he do it exactly? Because, like I said before, filtering through the millions of videos online on this topic is a challenge on itself. So, how was he able to do it? And for someone looking to do this, how hard would he rate the challenge?
It was the only I don't know. I think the way that I did it was the best way I could have done it. So I wouldn't say it was very difficult because what I did, because a lot of people they'll do like things where it's like I've got a year and I'm gonna lose this much weight, and if I don't, then I'll go even more extreme. And honestly, the way that I did it, I just was like, okay, I'm gonna do what I usually do, but I'm just gonna try to be more active, and I'm gonna try to make sure that I'm not eating too much. Like eat the same foods I eat, but just lesser quantities of it. And then I wouldn't say that I was necessarily even still healthy. Like you can lose weight and still not be really
Mm,
healthy. Like not eating
yeah.
healthy. I feel like now I eat
Mm,
healthier than I did, but like even if you're still eating junk food and stuff like that, you can still lose the weight as long as how much how much calories you're intaking and you're expending. Like if you're running like a mile and then you're eating a chocolate bar or something like that, as long as you're not eating like 4 chocolate bars and it's just completely undoing everything, you can still lose weight. You just got to be mindful of how much you're consuming of it.
Which is exactly what we said in the beginning of this video when we talked about calories. But when you're tracking calories, you may not always have somewhere to reference. So, how do you cater for this?
Honestly, it's a lot of guessing in tracking calories. You don't really know specifically. I'm sure the majority of the time I don't. I'm completely like way off. But as long as you have like a general idea of how many calories you're eating, you're still better off than having no idea. So like also I would
yeah.
say if you're not really sure at all, guess that
Mm,
it's higher than you think, because then you're gonna be end up more, as long as if you're giving yourself like, say it's some kind of carrot dish like you're talking about, and you're like I don't know, maybe it's like 50 calories, but then you're like, well, I'm gonna track it as 100 because I'm probably
mm,
underestimating it, and then you're probably
mm.
more accurate, or maybe you're gonna be a little over, but then you're gonna end up being technically in a more calorie. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah, it
be,
does.
yeah.
Now, before you go out and try any of the methods we just listed above, whether it's tracking calories, trying out a different diet, you first of all have to find out what works for you. Because there are a lot of advice on this topic, a lot of things that you hear from other people, but you first have to know what works out for you. Because maybe trying out a different diet isn't something you'd want to do. So before you try anything out, verify that it actually works, whether that involves seeing a dietitian, a nutritionist, or just a professional.
Yeah, that's definitely important, is to find what works for you, because you might not, or whoever is watching this might not want to track calories. They might do it and they hate it and it doesn't work for them, and they under track or whatever, and it doesn't have any effect. And personally, it worked for me. But yeah, I think the way that I found tracking calories was just through just going online, like listening to people talk about this type of thing. I think I talked about it in my video, but I saw this one specific YouTuber who mentioned tracking calories, and uh,
Yeah.
and I didn't even know what that was, and I didn't even know what a calorie deficit was, or I didn't know what that even like meant. And so I looked into it and I figured out what it was, and then I tried it, and it just kind of stuck. So I mean, you could try keto, maybe see if it's your thing, try all those diets, but um, go for a stroll and
Yeah.
do something simple, something like light that you can, that's not too overwhelming in your head, or maybe just like track your breakfast starting day one, or just something like that. And once you just get it started, that's the hardest part, which I don't
Mm,
really know like how I started. I think I just felt like, oh, this is something I could try. Let me just give it a shot for like a week. And if I don't like it, then I'll just
yeah.
never do it again. And then I liked it
Mm,
and I continued it. So I think try everything. Just set yourself to make yourself do it for like a week. And if you don't like it, then
yeah.
don't do it. Or if you do like it, then keep doing it. And eventually you'll find the thing that works for you, and then it'll be rolling down the hill
Yeah.
at record speed, I think is what I said in the video.
At this point, we've looked at so much about food, but I'm still indecisive. So I wanted to look at this and see if there was anything I could do to fix it. And the answer that I found had always been right there. You see, it's not about making the right choice. It's about making the choice that counts.